The views and opinions expressed within the video content found on the Indie Comics Network are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Indie Comics Network or its sponsors. Have a question or comment for us to address on the show? Have a topic you want us to talk about? Email us at indiecomicsnetwork@gmail.com. Want your comics to arrive in pristine condition? Head over to GeminiComicSupply.com and save 10% on your next Gemini mailer order or anything in the Gemini Comic Supply store. Use coupon code RAGIN10. That's RAGIN 10.
It is difficult to write these words, but I must for my own sake. I have done, seen, and been part of many things in my life.
Mike, you're muted.
I'm muted. Yes, I am. I am muted. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sketchy Saturday. I'm C. Michael Lanning, unmuted now. So, independent artist that work for Calico Sharper Arrow Comics, some upcoming Haus productions, and some other things that are in the works. Today, I'm working on silhouettes, trying to kind of come up with an iconic look for a character, and we'll see how that goes. So I'm going to go in order this morning. Rodney, you're next.
Hey guys, good morning. I am Rodney Fyke. I am an artist, creator, independent comic market off and on for the better part of 33 years. You can find me right here on the Indie Comics Network 3 different nights of the week, Saturdays here, Tuesdays, and Thursdays for Thursday Night Throwdown. You can find me on Twitch, Instagram, Facebook, all that fun stuff at Rodney Fyke Art, and the Hasm.com, HAZZUM.com. Check out all my books, such as Peanut Pudding and Jelly, Unchained, Pitter Patter, and Roadkill Rampage, soon to be Doghouse in 2023.
All right. Mr. John, you next, sir.
Okay, I'm John Celestri. I am a 50-year veteran of traditional old school animation and comic book work. Worked on Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, He-Man and She-Ra, and animated Boba Fett in the Star Wars Holiday Special. And I do my own line of comic books, all kinds from, small, kiddie books to quite adult. So I got a whole range of stuff, and you can find me here on Sketchy Saturdays. I've got my YouTube channel, John Celestri, and you can see me on Facebook. And I don't know for how long on Twitter. I have anything on Mastodon, but I don't know how. That's the elephant in the room right now. So anyway,
right.
Here I am.
So to speak, right?
Yeah.
What you working on today?
Today I am working on a page from book 4 of Bloodwing Angel Chronicles that I'm doing, and I think this is page 11 out of 24 or 28. So I'm working on this.
All right, awesome. Rodney, you didn't tell us what you're working on, real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry. I am working on putting together some poses for a couple of the new characters that will be appearing in issue 3 of Pitter Patter. This is House, Mouse, and Peep.
Right,
so
cool.
I'm just working on getting a nice little pinup that we can use for promotional items and stuff. So trying to find some poses.
All right. Russ, how are you this morning?
Yeah, good. I'm still drinking coffee. It's like 3:00 in the afternoon. I'm still drinking coffee.
Okay, but go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Russ Leach. I'm a comic book artist from the UK. I don't have the depth of comic book history that these fantastic other panelists do, but I have been in production for an awful long time, and I got to comics in about 2010, which was really my third career this life. So since then, I've managed to draw for Marvel and DC. I'm currently working on Batman in the UK and Europe, which you guys in the US can pick up on newsstand.com if you really want a copy, because there's a really nice free gift on the front. It's for kids. That's what I do. I do a lot of all ages stuff. I've also worked on Doctor Who and other brands for Cartoon Network. And currently, like I say, I'm with Doctor Who. I'm doing Batman, also do my own book, Only Death Can Save Us. Along with what you see on the board today, little bits and pieces that come into the studio. You can find out all about me at russleach.com. I will be on Twitter for the duration because I just like to eat popcorn and see what goes down. And so you can pick up all my social medias over there at russleach.com.
Right. And Marv said he can't join us this morning. He tried, but he can't connect again. Oh. And of course, here's Glenn.
Hey,
Morning,
Glenn. G'day.
I have to go back. I only got to watch like a little bit part of your Comics by Night. You were going through Serenko yesterday.
Oh, what a great book that is that Randy's got hold of. I've got the smaller version, the Artisan IDW version, which is a softback about. It's just oversized. It's bigger than magazine size. So you still get to see the art quite well, but that version that Randy's got is fantastic. I think we've got another part to do at some point, the second half of that book, because we've all got some great books between us to show off. I think we're going to try and do a Wally Wood episode. We did a John Buscema episode, which we might redo some because I've got another John Buscema book that would be good to see, and a Brian Bolland, a big, massive book that I've got of his artwork as well. So I think Glenn's got some stuff, and obviously Randy is an encyclopedia of that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a good series.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, well, it's on there with when we were looking at Wally Wood, and it's pretty fun just to kind of go back and look over the old artists and everything. And remind you where you are.
Remind you of the people that made the industry effectively, and it doesn't matter how many new styles you see, they're all built off the back of that. So.
Absolutely. So they stand on the shoulders of giants. That's a word.
That's the one.
So I was thinking this week, knowing what I've known now, as far as art is concerned, I'm curious what you guys think. If you could go back and tell yourself before you started this artistic journey, what's the first thing that you needed to learn? What would that be?
Good observation skills.
I
think it depends where you're talking about. If you're talking about me trying to get on the comics bandwagon back in the 90s, which I did for a while. It didn't work out, and I ended up in production, art direction, what have you, for a long time. I would say patience is a virtue.
Oh yes,
in fact, if anything, go get a job with the police, get a really good, nice pension for when you're 55, and then start your comics career then, because you don't have to worry about anything. Then you can just take all your chances. I did something similar to a degree because we sold up and moved and got a small place and went further out into the sticks, out of the countryside, and it meant that I could take chances in my third career in this life, which was to try and be an illustrator. And it's difficult for younger people to do that with bills and families and all kinds of stuff. So I was very fortunate to be able to do that. But yeah, patience, finding the right opportunity, and then when you do it, and you are drawing from the mechanical perspective, observation is king, because it feeds into everything that you do. Doesn't matter what your style is, whether it's cartoony, whether it's realistic. The observation of the world around you and the way that things work is vital. There you go.
I think for me that observation absolutely, because the stuff that kind of dings that light bulb over the head really comes from seeing real life more than anything.
Yeah.
What do you think, Rodney?
I'm gonna say patience for me personally. My entire life drawing, I wanted to be able to draw like Buscema and John Byrne and George Perez right now.
Right.
And without doing all the work, and just having the discipline and the patience to sit and draw and draw and draw and draw and draw and draw and draw. So for a long time, realizing that there are no shortcuts, and you have to actually, sit and do the work. And I've done that, but it took me a long time to do it enough. I've always done it, but I haven't done it enough. So yeah, I would say if I could go back to my 16-year-old self, I would say sit your ass down, turn off all the distractions, and just do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, patience and humility. So
exactly.
Understanding you can't do it yet. There's always more room.
Right. Understand the process and accept it and dive in.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm still learning patience. I don't know.
Yeah. No, with me, it's just, it's still, it's hard. I think I have undiagnosed ADHD. And I've always had it. So it's just
finishing off a page.
Yeah.
All I want to do is the sketchy bit.
Yeah.
And then I can walk away. I'm happy. But you've got to finish it off. You got to find, and doing color pages as well. So doing pages all the way through from pencil right the way through to color.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a bit hellish.
Yeah, and I was always part of teams, so I would I was always creating, so most of what went on the page was what I created, but I didn't draw it, so I was either inking backgrounds or I was coloring, I was lettering, so I was busy and I was doing comics, but I was never sitting and drawing comics because somebody else was always drawing the comics. And over the last 12, 13 years, I've been drawing, so as well as everything else. So yeah, I got a little behind because of that.
Right. Well, I think you said you're trying to draw like Perez and Buscema and everybody, and I was listening to, I can't remember who. I listened to a whole bunch of different people, tutorials and lessons and things like that. And somebody made the statement that you need to not look at it like they're so much better than me, and take into consideration that these guys have been doing this for years, and you're gonna and instead wonder what you're going to be like when you get to that point.
Yeah. I mean, some people are just like Kirby just came out of the gate, but you can't measure yourself against Kirby.
Oh no.
But yeah, in general, I mean, even John Buscema, you look back at his early work, and it didn't have the polish, it didn't have the gravitas that his mid and later work had. It was still pretty bloody good, to be honest. And of course, his marketing, advertising illustration was excellent as well. But still, yeah, you can go look at, and we were talking about the Steranko book yesterday, because what they did with the first few stories were of Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., were Kirby's layouts and Steranko inking basically over the top, but he was penciling as well, but you never saw the pencils. A comment we made yesterday is very rare that you see a Steranko pencil. It's nearly always ink. I don't think I've ever seen a Steranko pencil. Anyway, the point being is that you had two genius level creators there. You had Kirby doing the layouts. You had Steranko doing the inks. Obviously early on in his career, but still, you could still see the ability that he had, and it just didn't meld. It just didn't. You know, the two art styles together just didn't work as well as you might think they would. It was still wonderful to look at, and you could still see the genius in it, but there were just like really janky things going on. And then you look at his later work on S.H.I.E.L.D., and you can see where he's learned from what Kirby does and applied it to his own style, and then you see his style flourish. And by the time you see the sort of last few issues of Steranko's Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's just glorious, utterly glorious stuff. And you can, and that's like I mentioned then, he's for pound, he's the biggest puncher in comics ever. Yeah, because he came in, he did it, and then he went away again. And his volume is very small compared to people like Buscema or Kirby or Perez or whatever. And yet people talk about him in such reverential ways. And that's just because he was just, he is genius material. He's a showman. He's a rock star, really. I mean, yeah, he is. But he's all about the display, and you can see it on the page. It's all about that display, and just excellent stuff. I mean, obviously, S.H.I.E.L.D. wasn't the only thing he did. He did do other stuff, but that's the thing he's remembered for the most. And of course, he was in and out, and just brilliant stuff. But yeah, looking at other artists, especially those that intimidate you as well as inspire you, you look back at what they did, how they worked, how they came to be, and look at sometimes at the things that they did even later on when they were maybe under pressure, and under, because all of them worked at incredible speed, and some of the janky things they did, and it kind of puts things in perspective for you. You should always be your own worst critic, but at the same time, you shouldn't hang yourself out. You shouldn't be so harsh that you stop. So it's lovely stuff, Rodney.
You can compare yourself. That's fine, but well, let me put, and then maybe not necessarily compare yourself, but don't do it to where you feel down. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's more of a goal. We're joined by somebody. Hello, Mike.
Hey.
Oh, Marv's back. Oh, Mike.
Sorry, I'm late.
It's Mike. Oh, I'm disappointed. Hey. I thought it was Marv. You can go, Mike.
Both starts with an M. It's fine.
Good to hear your lovely voice.
You know what? You're one of the few people that would call that and love your voice. But, you're allowed to be sarcastic. How are you guys doing? Yeah, sorry guys, I'm late. Had some technical difficulties, so I'm dropping in late. But hi. I'm Mike Jimmy, CEO of Fairies and Ends, creator of Love on Korra, and been kind of absent from this show. Whoops. My life has been busy.
Yeah. Well, you were here last week, so.
Oh yeah.
What you working on today?
I have no idea yet. My head is a bit all over the place right now. So, and I haven't been home all week because I've been on a vacation. So,
okay.
I don't know. I'm pretty blank. Prompt me.
Oh my God, comic book creators don't get vacations. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I was.
He's a publisher. He's a publisher. He's not.
Right. Okay.
He's a suit.
It's a them.
No, I think a couple of weeks ago was the first time I wore a proper suit and tie. So I'm not a suit.
Just
I refuse to be a suit.
A suit in disguise, maybe. Okay. So, John, how about you? What would you tell your younger self with all the knowledge that you have now? Where to start?
Well, I would say that when you hit a certain high level of income, don't go. Just stay small. Because then you'll always be able to survive. You know, I mean, and this is more of a business-like thing versus, you know, like say what Russ was saying. You know, because what happens is that you reach a certain point, and you know where you're in demand or your talents are good. I mean, like, you know, everything that everybody else has said. You know, I don't want to double up on that, but I think that you have to remember that technology will always try to replace you.
Yes.
So the big thing is to try and create and hone your talents so that they're usable no matter what the technology is.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
for sure.
Yeah.
You know, so I would say that's what you need to. I mean, you can have passion projects, but if you're looking at, you know, as an employable artist, make sure that what you have can be translated, and you can do the passion. You know, do what you do best, but figure out ways where it can be usable. You know, without being on a pencil. I mean, if you can write. If you can do layouts, layout. But you need to always keep up with technology in some ways. Mm-hmm. So, and also, I'll tell you, I would tell myself is that no matter how important you are, there's the most important thing is for a producer, and this is, we're talking about real, is how much you're going to cost them.
Yes.
And they will replace you with the cheapest thing that they can find, because they will invariably not have taste. It's how fast and how on time and what's the lowest common denominator that they will be willing, you know, the audience will accept.
Right.
Yes.
This is all, I mean, but this is the reality thing. This is, you know, this can be the sketchier part of Saturday.
So sketch fast, sketch good, and hopefully you'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah, but the thing is that, you know, you do what your talent is. I mean, find what you like best, make it adaptable, and you know, if you survive the industry, when you retire, you could do your passion.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You know,
so, I mean, so basically, one thing that, and it does happen a lot, is don't forget this is a business.
Yes. It's a business first.
Yes.
Right.
It's always been that way.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's even the time periods when you have your great golden age, it was still a business. If there's nothing to sell, if the audience doesn't want it, you know, there's nothing for the producer to pay you with, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's just kind of the nature of a beast, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah.
It sucks. it's true.
Yes.
What's it? You can't eat exposure. So.
No, it's you can't eat glory.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, especially when a producer is asking you to, you know, well, do it for the exposure. Up to a certain point, yeah. But, you know, even if it's a glory item, it's, oh, well, this is going to be a great job and whatnot. So we'll pay you below any kind of minimum livable wage. You can't eat that,
Right.
I think you've got to be prepared to do lots of different things as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can't just say, I'm going to be a comic book artist and that's the end of it. And if it isn't comic book work, I'm not doing it. And it's like, no, that's from a business perspective, that's suicide.
Yeah, basically, right. You're not going to be living. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got to be able to do that and make sure that you have a business, and exactly like John's saying, be versatile, and make sure that you've got what people need.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the big thing. I mean, even during the golden age, so many people, did comic book work who were animators. A lot of those great, Popeyes, and the Fleischer Studio animators or Terry Toons, they did comic book work, and they were animators. So
yeah, that's right.
You need to be able to do that. I mean, Marty Taras was big on doing a lot of the Terry Toon comics, but he was a major animator for Terry Toons and Fleischer. Yeah, he created Baby Huey.
Oh, hey, I know Baby Huey.
Yeah, that's that was Marty. And I learned a lot from him and Johnny Gent, who was the big Popeye animator of the 1940s. And but they did everything. So make yourself available to that.
Make yourself usable in any possible way, because in the end, you need to be able to pay the bills.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Well, that's what they were having to do when comic books. I mean, it wasn't really you didn't really make a living of it back in the 50s and the 40s, 50s, and 60s. You had to do marketing stuff, and like we were looking at
well, I mean, comic books back in those days, they were the bottom of the rung, as it were, as far as how much you got paid, which is why you have artists from the time being so quick and throwing out so much, because they were paid by the page, and that was the end of it. And they threw a lot out, and that meant they became very proficient at what they were doing, which meant they could earn more. And then when comics became extremely popular between, I suppose, the 60s and the 80s into the 90s, that was when your earning potential as a comic book artist was at its height. And you could effectively have a career as a comic book artist then. Things have changed so radically now that, for a start, it's all about supply and demand. And the bottom line is that the market just isn't the same as it. You can say it's grown year on year, fine, okay. But compared to the volume of comics there were on newsstands back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, okay, it's a fraction of that.
Yeah.
Okay. And because of the volume, literally the volume of traffic, the volume of product, you had volumes of opportunities as a creative. Now you have to find your way. You have to worm your way through. And if you can get a good gig on a comic, great. But you've got to be able to say, okay, I can do animation, or I can do design, or I can go and do illustrations for books, or I can do Christmas cards. It doesn't matter what it is. You just got to do it, and don't be too picky about the job, because that's about staying alive. That's about staying as a business person.
Right.
And exactly as John said, when you get to the end of the further down the line, as it were,
when you get to my end of the caboose,
but it doesn't. John's obviously in that situation where he can do that. I found myself in a much better situation because of previous careers, and we're probably the oldest two on the panel, and that is the way it works. Unfortunately, you get more choice the further down the line you are.
Yes.
And I think another thing that for a young artist, if we're talking about, we were talking about thinking back, but like advice, I would say, realize that taking an opportunity is not necessarily about doing what you want. For the first 10 years, I was the writer. I created everything. But in doing that, I also fell into, well, okay, this guy fritzed out, so we need somebody to ink this issue. Well, I can ink. I'm not inking this book, but I can ink. So you jump in, and all of a sudden you become an inker. So it's the opportunity that presents itself in business, and you go from not really doing what you want to do, but you're part of the gang, and okay, well, I can fit in here. I can pinch hit here, and then you're learning that skill as well. So allowing yourself to be in the conversation, in the room, to be there for an opportunity, and then you just kind of learn through osmosis and necessity, a skill that you might not necessarily ever thought that you were going to want to learn or have it be useful to you.
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, I never thought that I'd write.
Right.
I just didn't think it was part of my purview.
Right.
But I did, and it ended up being well received. So, but the only reason I could do the only reason I came to that was not because I was driven to be a writer, was because I was driven to create ideas, and by taking in the environment, taking in other people's stories and seeing how they worked, it gave me the ability, or it gave me the basis to work from. So you've got to see yourself as being able to do anything that you need yourself to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I remember. Some advice that Todd McFarlane gave at one time.
Get out, kid, get out now.
Said, make sure you learn everything. Learn coloring, learn inking, learn penciling, learn lettering. Because that means that you have 4 portfolios. And that gets you in the business anyway. You could get in as a letterer and then work your way into other facets. You could get in as an inker, work your way, on and on.
Yeah.
So I think that plays into what you're saying, Rodney, is the more you learn, the more you round yourself out, the more opportunities open up to you.
Well, yeah, it's, I started out writing and creating, the Superior 7, and that, we rode that wave as long as we could, and it led to coloring, and we were making more money coloring comics than we ever made producing our own comics. And I would have never guessed 5 years prior that I would actually be coloring comics, but I did, because it just kind of fell into our laps, and I was present when the opportunity presented itself. So, that's, being in the right place at the right time is also important as well. And if you're not out doing stuff, even though you're not necessarily doing what you want to do, being in those situations and in those groups is vital, because you are presented with opportunities.
And necessity.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to do it. Like I colored my own book. I ended up having to color my own book, and I'm now coloring other stuff in a completely different way, because I've learned from what I've done. And if I hadn't have had the necessity of having to color my own book because of the situation I was in, I'd have never had the confidence to color for other people.
Right.
And now I'm coloring, stuff for art, albeit artwork that I do. Okay, but it's still, I'm offering my services as a colorist to a publisher, where I just would not have done that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, I mean, in animation, I've gone through, I went through the ranks totally as an in-betweener, as a cleanup artist, and then as an animator, and then as a director. And, you have to know the jobs that you're asking people to do. That's one of the things that I always find, is that people who have money, who start off with as a writer, and they're asking their artists to do things that are on a timeline that are incredibly draining and are not going to work because it's just not understanding what the process is.
Yeah.
And that has happened so many different times. But if you want to, if you're going to do a project, make sure you understand what it is that you're getting your people into.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's important. I do a lot of writing now, and like C and I are working together on Doghouse, and I am always very conscious of what I'm asking them to do, because I think to myself, wow, can I do this? Can I do this? And if not, then I'm like, okay, well, let me tone this down a little bit. I don't remember who said it, but the one time somebody said it was an artist complaining about the writer saying, oh yeah, we've got an unlimited budget, we can draw whatever we want, and the only limits are our imaginations, and I've got this idea of the space battle against the backdrop of a nebula, and all these starfighters coming out and the explosions and stuff, and the artist is going, yeah, won't you tone it down a little bit there, Skippy, because I have to draw all that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There is the enthusiasm, but say there's the practicality. It's kind of like, I understand what your budget really is.
Right. Yeah. Let me hit some of these comments because I'm kind of letting it fill up over here. Glenn Fleming says he would tell himself draw from life, then put silly costumes on.
Yeah.
Then put the silly costumes on. So. And MarV said the Netherlands are winning, Mike. Don't tell the guys.
I don't watch football. Don't worry.
Don't feel bad about it. We all should. If you don't know yet, we all know how Russ feels about football. Marv said he did illustrations for 6 months for a big shot journalist a few years ago for a cultural website, and he didn't get any support whatsoever. New ads were arriving every week, thousands of views. He left. If you're not getting paid for it, you got to move somewhere else where you can. So.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the first reason to just run off.
Yeah. Glenn said, I learned about everything I could: layout, illustration, cartoons, writing, copywriting, printing, typography, photography, art direction, storyboards. He said, I learned how to tell a story in pictures through studying Eisner, Kirby, and Ditko. Learn everything you can, then apply it.
Yep.
Yeah. Mark said I learn as much as I can about everything related to comics, movies, writing every day. And then Glenn says, opportunity is there all the time. It depends on 2 things: seeing it, then acting on it.
Yep.
Yeah?
Oh yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Morning, Brown Dog. He says, good morning, Sketchers.
And another thing on that is, and I think Russ touched on it briefly when he was commenting about it, is having the confidence in yourself to offer up your services when an opportunity presents itself.
Ooh, yeah.
Which sometimes is hard to get over. And I've said this in other podcasts, is just get over yourself and do it.
Mm-hmm.
We're our own worst roadblocks at times.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And you also want to take into consideration that you're going to get more rejections probably than you're going to get acceptance. So just keep going.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But the quicker you learn that's part of the game and then not take it personally, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the term "fake it till you make it."
No,
I don't believe in that term. However, you must be brave. because if you're not, you're never going to get anywhere. You've got to take a few risks every now and then. The amount of times I've been in a situation and people have said, can you do X? And I'm like, yeah, I can do that. And I haven't done it before. I mean, it's not like they're saying to me, can you fix a car? It's like, no, I can't do that. No, I'm not an engineer or a mechanic. I cannot do that. But if they say, well, can you draw me something that you've never drawn before in a particular way that maybe you've never done it before, I'm confident enough to say, do you know what? I can get over that. I'll do it.
Yeah. Might take a couple of tries, but we can.
Exactly. And I'll learn from it.
That's
exactly.
You beat me to it. Yeah. And the best part of that is that you're going to learn something new.
Yeah. And then next time you might bump into someone else and they'll say, oh, can you do X? I mean, you think, I've done that. And it took me however long it did last time. And I'd maybe not lost money because obviously you've taken the job to get the money, but it took you longer than it should, or it took you longer than something you're experienced in doing. But now you're experienced in it.
Oh, yeah.
So, So, be brave and get out there because it ain't going to come and knock on your door. You don't get the work by sitting there. You don't even really get the work by putting out fantastic pictures on the internet. That's not the way this shit works.
No, it's not. It would be nice.
More than that. Yeah. You've got to be far more than that. You've got to make things. You've got to make something that looks saleable rather than just a pin-up. Okay, if that's what you want to do, fine. That's your bag. You do it. If you want to be a professional, and when I say that there's plenty of people that do it for fun who are professional in the way that they approach it. Okay, professionalism isn't all about just getting paid for it. All right, it's about an attitude and about how you present yourself. But if you want to do it as a way of making money, literally making a salary out of it, you have to apply yourself as a business person. And that means that you have to get out there and make things that are saleable or that appear to be saleable to someone who might want to employ you to do something for them. And you also have to be approachable. And basically, if I was to give anybody young any advice, would be, especially in the world of social media and the modern world, shut your mouth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just do your thing.
Yep.
Show everybody what you are by what you can do. You don't need to convince everybody that you're their best friend or that you think like they do. Just get out there and do your thing.
Right.
Yeah. But that's something that a lot of the younger folks don't realize is if you're likable and you're sociable and you get along and people like you, you're going to get more opportunities.
You are, simply because people will be able to communicate with you easier.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. It's all a communication thing, whether it's telling stories or whatever. But and the initial aspect to that, how to gain those jobs, is by you being approachable, people seeing you and think, that person looks all right. I've seen them here, or I don't know. I never see them in online arguments. I always see that they've worked for other people and that everybody's happy. I'm going to approach them and see if they want a job. That's the way it works. Yeah. So even in the modern world of social media, there are still aspects of, the boomer world that still hold true. They still hold true, especially for larger companies who are not looking for drama.
There was a situation that I had. Well, there was a guy I had at work. He was looking for another job, and he went and applied for it. And it's like mill work. It's not artistic work per se, but he went to apply for it. But there's two other guys that he had worked with there before, and they were going to hire him. So he was ready to come back and put in his 2-week notice. They were going to hire him. Well, those two guys, and I'm not saying that they were right or wrong. This is just the fact. Those two guys went into their boss and told them how they felt about him and how hard it was to work with him. And they called him back and said, well, not right now. You could try back again another time. So essentially, because of the way and the attitude that you have with people, they didn't want to work with you anymore, they went in there and actually changed the tide of how you were going to get hired. Now, whether they were wrong or right, that's not really the point. It's the fact that it happened because of the way that you are with people.
The situation happened in the first place. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It shouldn't even have been an issue.
Right.
Yeah.
And ultimately, see, that's that person's fault.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and he was a difficult person to work with.
Yeah.
I understand why. I understand why they did it. It just sucks that that's how that comes down to. But that's how it is across the board.
Well, you know, everywhere I've ever been, every job I've ever held, in art departments or in factories or machine shops or whatever, and I've done everything from deliver pizza to everything. There's a saying that is consistent with every place of employment you'll ever work, and it's there's one of those at every job.
Oh yes. Don't be that guy.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And there's nothing worse than having a great work environment, and then they troll this new person in, and they're walking them through, and they're showing them this, and they're showing them that, and you just look at them, and you look over at your coworkers, and you go, "Oh Christ, please don't hire this guy." And they bring him in, and it just the whole mood is just sucked out of the room.
Yes. It does. It happens. And so that's what I'm saying. And it doesn't matter. Yeah, we see it in the comic book profession, but you also see it in look at acting for that matter.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if somebody like Chevy Chase, even as popular as he was, if he was just a more likable guy, you'd probably have seen him more. You know, it's just that's just how it is. A lot of people have lost jobs or whatever the case is, just because you weren't. And that doesn't just go for attitude. That also goes with professionalism on doing the job.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many aspects to being professional on a job. It's, the communication aspect, but also like meeting briefs and getting in on time. I would say that's the most important thing is timelines, schedules.
Yes.
But on time is better than perfect every time.
Yeah, there's one comic creator in the Netherlands that I know of that is being so very unprofessional, and they're getting very good jobs legitimately. Like we're talking tens of thousands of euros. And big comic projects, like legitimately within comics. But their work ethic is such a way that they're pushing away a lot of writers and creators, and they're killing their reputation. And while their PR is amazing, and you know they're getting jobs because they can talk really well. If you can't put your money where your mouth is, you're still gonna kill your own career.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening right now. And it's really sad to see. But on the other hand, they created it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And as a publisher, I would never hire them.
I know. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Everybody's watching you one way or another, even though.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes sometimes it's not gossip or even talk that gets you. It's the way somebody's watching you. You know, somebody's always watching you.
Yeah.
What you do.
Yeah.
Like that song, right? Yeah.
There's the FBI.
Uh-huh.
Now get out of my shower. Just for all our younger viewers, that was an 80s reference. You'll be fine.
MarV says, if I was 20 years old, I would post hot pics on IG. I was fired.
Hot pics. I would definitely be on OnlyFans, yeah.
Yeah, no. I just have a I have a face for radio. Even if my girlfriend disagrees, but that's fine. That means that I can just, talk boxing to her instead. And you can just enjoy my hands.
There you go.
I'd be I would be a total hand model.
There you go. That always reminds me of that Seinfeld episode. Every time I think about somebody with a hand model.
Oh my god!
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I wasn't a huge Seinfeld fan, but they did have funny stuff on there.
Oh yeah.
Like they were looking at George Costanza's. The woman was looking at George Costanza's hands, and he's like a 30-something-year-old man at this point in time, and she's like, "Wow, your hands are so soft. It's like you've never worked a day in your life."
Yeah.
You have a lady's hands, sire.
Yeah. I thought that was funny. Glenn said, always listen to your elders. They have the experience. Remember, they can't recall being 24. If you're 24, you don't know anything about being 30.
I can't recall being 24.
I've
slept since then.
I'm not going to say a damn word. It was 5 years ago for me.
I remember
says that now. Go ahead, Rodney.
No, I'm sorry. I remember being in college, my first probably 3 months at school. There was a guy who nobody was really quite sure what to think about him. He was one of the teachers, but he was kind of saucy. He came in late all the time, and he smelled of bourbon and everything. But he was a friend of the owner of the school and everything. Of course. But he called me into his office one time, and he was really impressed with my marker work. And he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to do comics." And I was going on about this and that and the other. And one of the things he told me, he says, "I've been your age. You've never been mine. You need to listen to what people are telling you and quit being so ambitious and study." I was like,
now that sounds familiar, though.
Okay, I've been your age. You've never been mine. I was like, ooh, okay.
It hurts.
To climb back into that bourbon bottle and leave me alone.
But another thing he told me too, and I never took him up on it, which I one of my biggest regrets until years later is he said, if you want to be a comic book artist, put down that rapidograph pen and pick up a paintbrush.
Yeah.
And
I've learned that with it's been painful having to learn that. Yeah. And it's something that you don't appreciate when you. I was relating this to the guys yesterday. When you're 10 and you pick up that Bronze Age comic book, every line is perfect. Yeah. Everything you see is perfect because it's just so amazing. You're looking at it and you're blown away by it. And then when you're mid-20s and you pick up that comic by Jim Lee and you think, oh my God, every line is perfect. And it isn't, and it isn't overly detailed either. It's just the economy of line in genius level artists is totally unappreciated by most people.
Right.
It's the economy of line to make things look as good, as sumptuous as they are. It's not all about even the most detailed of lines. If you look at some of the Conan stuff, is it Alcuda? I can never remember his name, but he had so much. It was like a woodcut, his style, and yet all the lines, they all work. Nothing's throwaway. Nothing is throwaway in it, and you just don't appreciate that when you're younger. So when you come to being, appreciating the world around you, not being quite so naive, and having a bit of experience behind you, you suddenly start looking at the art again and realizing, much like we were talking about earlier, you see the janky bits, you see the bits that don't necessarily work, and all the rest of it, and you realize this is perfect, and you don't need to use a ruler and a Rotring pen in order to get these effects. What you need is you need to let yourself go. You need to let it flow through you and be more organic about what you're doing. And that's a fight I've been in for years now. And it's never going away because you want to at the same time, you want I like to see a tight page. I like to see tight visuals, but I also want the freedom of a brush, and I want the splash on the page. I want it to have energy. And every time you tighten up what you're doing, you lose a little bit of energy.
Yeah.
I so many times I've done sketches, and when I go to ink it, or I have somebody else go to ink it, I know there's stuff that's going to get lost in the translation, and it's crushing because there's so much energy in that raw sketch. And it's like, oh, come on, we can't lose this. We got to keep this. We got to keep this. And you get it back, and you're like, ah, shit, he didn't keep it.
It was, it was David. I think it was David Lloyd. That's it. David Lloyd's V for Vendetta, isn't it?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's not. It is David. Anyway, I saw an interview with him, and he was talking about covers, and he was saying every time you do something, you lay down that sketch. And then you put some finer lines on it to realize it. You lose a little bit of energy, and then you ink it, and you lose a little bit of energy. And then it gets coloured, and it loses a little bit of energy. And it's just the nature of the beast. Excuse me. And that's unfortunately the way it is. So what you've got to do is apply as much energy as you can in order to see it through to the end of the process.
As an animator, as an assistant, when you do an animation sketch, you're trying to put the initial one is to be as rough and just full of energy. When you're an assistant, that's the equivalent of doing the clean. When you're doing a cleanup, the equivalent of being an inker, because you're trying to capture, maintain what the energy of the character is and what the animator wanted to do, but keeping it in model. And that's a real tough ability or a thing to do. And an assistant should plus it. So an inker should plus the drawing. And that's, many times an assistant would not get promoted to animator because the assistant was too damn good.
Oh
yeah,
that's interesting.
Oh yeah, because you could get animators who can do work, but an assistant to be able to plus something and make the animator look better than what the animator was. Everybody wanted that person on their team.
There's
and sometimes the assistant was paid more than the animator. That's in the old school days.
Yeah.
Well, when push comes to shove, the people in charge, art directors, editors, and stuff like that, they know that's why they're in the positions they are, because they know who the cream of the crop is, and they're going to put those people in the right positions to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, but what's happened, here's the thing: is that yes, that works old school ways, but when you have computers that basically allow, I ask you to, just push buttons and move things around because the design doesn't matter. There's a certain level, and we're getting that into AR art, where people are choosing things that are available and it looks really good, but they don't have to really do anything. That's another story. We're sketching. We're sketching. And this show, this here is for those who want to become professionals, but also want to be an amateur, and do it for the love of it. And I think that is a really important thing. So I would say, loosen up.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm proving my girlfriend wrong right now. She's been saying that I don't draw humans. Now, I gotta admit I am rusty, but nonetheless.
Marv said, someone said on the documentary about Kirby, if you're good, you're a threat.
I mean,
there's two ways to make yourself unpromotable. One, you don't do the job. You don't do the job you have well. Or
Second,
two, you do the job. You,
Oh, sorry. Only I did that. Sorry.
And of course, two, you do the job too well, and you're irreplaceable. So,
yes.
That was something I ended up learning with when I was in my 20s. So,
what, doing jobs too well? Tell me how to do that.
Basically, well, that's the thing is you're just being efficient.
Oh yeah, no, that helps.
Glenn said that's why Senate, Giacoa, and Palmer, etc., all were so good. They retained the penciler style in the finished work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they did,
and that's why I produce the whole thing in my comics: writing, pencils, inking, and coloring. Other hands might change my vision. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still keen. If at some point I could do it to work with an inker, that I could knock pencils out and trust the inker to do it, because and the inker themselves being an artist, not just tracing over the pencils, and that's not a dig at inkers, because I ink my own pencils. I understand that it isn't just tracing. However, we've got into a situation with a lot of the larger publishers where the pencils are so finished that it gives inkers very little variation. It gives them very little areas where they can go with their own, style and approach, because the pencils are so finished. So it would be, back in the day when you had Kirby and more so in the Bronze Age with people like Adams and Buscema, they would plan stuff out, and you would have inkers, embellishers, who would do their bit to the job, as it were, their part, and they would be just as important artists. I mean, Sinnott is an amazing artist in his own right. He brought a particular look to everything he did, and you could see it was Sinnott. So you could see the penciler, the style underneath, and go, "Oh, right, well, that's a Buscema or whatever." And then you go, "Oh, but that's also Sinnott." And that was something I didn't appreciate when I was younger that I do now. And then again, that all fit, it all sort of files into that whole thing about how you approach your work. And I'd really love to be able to do that, but I have a feeling that that's just not going to happen. It's just the situation, the environment for those kind of team ups to happen just isn't going to happen. So I will continue to ink my own work, because I haven't really found anything yet to make me feel like I don't want to ink my own work.
Well, when you get to like the old Marvel and DC, where everybody was pretty much doing a book a month, and you had a team on one book and so on.
Yeah,
you have to, when you're working with a team, you have to learn each other's language.
Yeah.
And and what happened with a lot of them with the inkers is they were inking over these pencils so much that I'm sure at certain moments there's that light bulb that went off, like, oh, this is what he wants to do with that line. Okay, we can do that.
And, without doubt, yeah. I mean, someone like Sinnott, who was working with some of those artists on a long-term basis, would have known exactly what to do with certain things. To the point that the penciler as well, it would have been easier for the penciler.
Oh, yeah.
Because the penciler would have known that Sinnott would know, as it were. I know you know that I know you know. And there would be that unspoken synergy. Yeah.
I mean, I'm starting to see with my colorist as well. Like in like Love and Quarter 3 and 4, you really saw her kind of testing the waters, and then in 5, she just went all out and did her own thing, and you get your pages back, you're like, yeah, no, this is exactly what I thought it was going to look like, and there you go. And she's been doing reworking issues 1 and 2 from my flats, and she completely ignores everything I did, and it works because we speak each other's language.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's something to cherish.
Oh yes. No, I'm not letting that girl go. She is mine. Dear Lord.
Right.
Woohoo!
So you might want to clear that up with your girlfriend in case she's not watching.
Say, yeah.
She might have just heard that.
No, she knows. Like, I'm not letting this colorist go, and she's in the Philippines. So, I mean, there's no reason for jealousy. If there is jealousy, then they can fight it out among each other. But it's not my problem. I just pay this person to do good work. I'm running out of caricatures.
That's why you gotta look at pictures.
Yeah, well, I'm on my phone, so if I try if I try and look at something else right now, yeah, I'm gonna drop out of the stream.
Right.
Sorry, guys.
But okay, Mike, and we didn't get your answer on this. The question was, I asked it before he came into the room, was if you, with the knowledge that you have now, and you could go back and tell your younger self, which I guess for you, like what, maybe 12? Anyway.
Not wrong.
Well, but still, even at 12, I think I would pick that age.
Oh, yeah, totally.
When I was really getting into it. What would you tell yourself to start with, to focus on first?
Do things more. Like, if you want to get anywhere with your art in general, work on it constantly. And fuck the naysayers. The only way you're going to get anywhere with anything is by doing it. And, you learn by doing things. And a lot of people forget that art is no different. So, if you're going to try and learn something, start small. Like I'd say to any creator that I find nowadays, like start smaller, and keep doing it, and enjoy what you're doing. Well, I always did that, but 12-year-old me wasn't exactly in the headspace to consider enjoyment a factor in things.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, like if you want to get somewhere, get on it, because nobody's going to do it for you.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I've heard a situation before. Somebody said, I will get you guys' take on this. Is if you learn a certain way, you want to learn the right way first, but if you learn a certain way, you can't unlearn that way. Basically, let's see if I can explain that a little bit better, because that sounded like a mess.
No, I think I get you.
Well, basically, they said you can't unteach things. And if somebody doesn't learn right, they never can go back and learn the right way. Which I thought was kind of that. I don't know if that's necessarily true.
No, it's not. It's not. Like, legitimately, there are Okay, so I'm actually going to take an example that I learned from a musician at some point. He was like, yeah, there's like 5 things that any amateur guitarist always does wrong. And they may be amazing at their craft and being able to make music, but their hands are going to be positioned in a certain way because they never learned how to do it properly, and to make their hands not cramp up after an hour.
Right. No, I think I got you.
Yeah. So, and then when those guys actually do get the proper education on it and learn the proper way to do it, they turn into a completely different musician because of it. Because they suddenly know how to do something. And it's no different in art or writing or whatever. Like, you never stop learning. If you learned something the wrong way around, either you made it your own and it made it into you as a person, and it put your hand in a way that people start recognizing you, or you completely learned it the wrong way, and at some point you're going to be like, oh, so that's what I was doing wrong. Or someone tells you you were doing it wrong, and you're going to learn. But either way, like, yeah, no, just because you're set in your ways, you're either being too stubborn for your own good, which happens a lot, or you don't, you're not ready to grow in that direction yet, or you've never been educated.
I think in terms of being stubborn, it's also lazy.
Yeah.
Because to unlearn something or to learn the proper way, you have to then use new muscles that you haven't used before.
Exactly.
And that's a thing of, no, I'm okay. This is it. It's people don't recognize my genius.
Yeah.
That's something I do that.
Oh boy. Ripping open the can of beans there.
Yeah. Well, no. Listen. Let's come on. Let's face it. I've had a lot of assistants, that would say, that one in particular say, that's the trick to animation. I said, no, that's not a trick. That's just one element of it. And people would, he'd look at what I'm doing and I would ask him, put together these key poses from a scene to use as a model. Yeah. Okay. He would choose his drawings that were in betweens and breakdowns, and he couldn't tell that they weren't as good as the keys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had to say no. I say no. These are not. You could choose your drawings for yourself, but these are the keys. The expressions. The key poses. You use those, not in betweens that are softer. Or breakdowns that are sort of pretty good, but not the key poses. And there are people who are so intent on finding the easy way to do something that they are almost unteachable.
Yeah. No, for sure. For sure.
I mean, I'm talking, always, bringing the conversation back to the question that C had is, as an older person, telling a younger person, myself, is always, and I'm just confirming it, always learn from the person who knows more about, and don't try to, cut across. Be willing to do the work to get to that point, and take criticism when it's valid. They're telling you what they know. Now, that just make available of it. Just because it's new today, just because they've done it an old way, doesn't mean it's not the right way.
It's that especially,
So, and the thing is that if they've been successful, there's a reason they were successful at it.
Yeah.
Even a hack who is capable of churning out the work. There's a trick that they're not trick, but there is a method that they used. You may not agree with it, but at least you understand what they did to get to that point. And say, okay, I understand. You may not need to use it but it's there. Is kind of an available element to your production methods. That's the best I can say about that one, though. But anyway, yeah, there are no tricks. They are processes. There are ways of doing things that are efficient, for production.
Right.
Oh yeah.
But sometimes the easy way is not the best way for art.
No. That's something I've learned too. It's like, there's got to be an easier way to do this. But what ends up happening to me is I always come back to doing the way it was taught.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy. There's only efficient.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
I'll tell you another thing is that I learned this as I was going through, but if you put everything that you know and everything and your effort is in it at 100%, okay, but you only get to 80% of the thing, don't spend twice as much time trying to get the other 10 or 20%. Your muscle will get stronger as you keep going. So be efficient with your time, put all your effort and energy into it, and then and move on.
Finish, and if it's not completely finished yet,
you're going to be good.
Fine.
You're going to get better because it's like a muscle.
Oh yes.
So.
Oh yeah. Well, muscle memory plays into a lot too. I mean, just
for sure.
To have confident lines, just learning to use your elbow instead of your wrist or just your hand. That's some exercise there. Believe it or not.
Yeah, I'm using my wrist more than my finger because remember, I still have my boo-boo.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
So that's what I'm drawing with. I'm drawing with a finger that doesn't work.
Did he say boob?
Boo-boo.
It's a boo-boo.
His fingers hurt.
No.
I'm going.
I think one of the important things that John touched on very briefly too is the ability to just let something go and move on.
Yes.
I remember hearing Jim Shooter say the hardest thing to do was to let a script go and call it finished because he kept wanting to go back and tweak it. And I'm guilty of that a lot. And it's just like, okay, it's good enough. Just let it go. The next one will be better.
Yeah, repetition is the mother of perfection. But perfection is the enemy of good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That needs to be a T-shirt. Please tell me. Please tell me that's a T-shirt.
We should all
stick
have
with He's with Stupid.
I also say this here is that when you're doing something and you're working on a page, rough it out. Totally rough it out in a way so that you can see it and gauge it, and understand it for yourself, and then work over it, and then keep roughing it. And a lot of times, thinking is working. Yeah. You don't have to lay down a line perfectly. Just you're letting your pencil think. And your pencil should be an extension of your mind.
Yeah. That's where the muscle memory thing comes as well, because sometimes when you've drawn things a number of times, things start becoming easier. It's like anatomy. Things start getting into place a lot easier for you. You start seeing things that you wouldn't necessarily see, the errors in your work. But yeah, I mean, I was got Glenn in the chat. He's got a similar background to me. I started off in design, advertising, marketing, publishing, and ended up in retail design for a while. And while I was there, Apple Macs, this shows you how old I am. Apple Macs started to become used in production. So before that, artwork was done with paste up. That means you take a photomechanical transfer, okay, or a piece of outputted text in galley form, and you cut it out on a board and you run it through a waxer. That's hot wax for the kids.
Yeah.
It's hot wax. And you have hot wax on the back of it, and you lay it down. You lay it down on a board, okay? And then what you do is you put a sheet of tracing paper over the top of it, and you mark it up for 4 color, and you trace in on said photomechanical transfer camera, which is like a rostrum camera with dials, and you blow up the image that you want from a transparency, okay, not a digital image but a transparency, and you trace in where you want the picture to be and give it a percentage, and you send that off to the repro house, and they bring you back proofs before you go to print. Okay, so I did all that stuff like Glenn, and I'm sure John is very familiar with all that kind of thing, and then we got Apple Macs in, and everybody dived on the Apple Macs. It was like all the designers went straight to the Mac before they went to their pencil and pad. It just happened that way. You could see everybody diving for the tool before they actually had their idea. Keen as mustard to get in there. And I was part of that as well, because obviously you'd never seen anything like this before. But it really highlighted the danger of not doing sketches, just as John's saying, not laying down your idea. You don't have to lay down lots of ideas. I mean, I was never the kind of person that did 10 covers and go, maybe I'll whittle that down to 3. No, I had an idea and it worked. But I would sketch it out. I would make sure I loosely got it worked out on a pad and a pencil. And even with all these fantastic tools that we have, I would still suggest sitting there. Even if you sketch it out in Clip Studio, make sure you sketch. Make sure you plan that. Don't just go straight into the weeds. Okay, and that's where people lose out. And you can actually in a more maybe sort of on the ground example of how that would work as well. You talk about anatomy of people. Okay, it's really easy to get lost in what you're doing and screw your anatomy quite easily. Okay, because you're being lost in the detail rather than the form and the energy and the gravity of the anatomy that you're producing. And the amount of illustrations I see where people have obviously not finished off the anatomy. So say there's a hand behind the bulk of the body, or somebody's crossed legs or something, and you look at it properly and you can see that the leg's too long, or the arm's jutting out in the wrong place, the elbow would never be there, stuff like that. And although to a degree style can sort of overcome that and you can get away with it a little bit, eventually it will jut out from your drawings, it will jut out from your imagery, and that kind of works. It doesn't just work for anatomy, it works for everything. Just plan what you're doing, give it a sketch, double check things, flip things over, just have an idea of what you're doing before you get stuck in the weeds, or before you get stuck into technology especially.
Well, I think the idea behind that is, I can always undo.
Yes.
And you don't really want to have that mindset, honestly, because it's going to mess you up in the long run.
I would say my physical inking, my traditional inking, is better than my digital inking. Because I actually agree. Control Z. I don't have that knockback.
I would say that one of the things that what I see, I'll look at stuff and I say, okay, where's the balance in this pose? That's, you have to think about it. And also drawing through the character. The hardest thing to do is have somebody with weight sitting on something. And crossing their leg because they don't understand the structure. And the thing about it is that you're not placing it. You should be feeling as you wrap that leg around the object. And so therefore, if you understand form and and whether or not it's a solid mass or it's a pliable mass, but a leg is still hinged a certain way. And so therefore you have to understand what the perspective is when you are, when that person is seated, and drawing and posing the character properly so the silhouette reads.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm doing right now. Is just you can see the messing with the silhouettes, trying to make sure that silhouette, is the
it's the most important thing. But you don't have to be, mechanical about it. Be loose. That way you can understand what the energy is, and then you can always pull it back and make sure that the form works within that energy. It's all, I mean, but it's something that takes practice to do. And it's only by going through and understanding, a lot of people don't understand what they don't understand. They don't understand that they don't have the knowledge.
Right.
They don't understand what's missing in it because they haven't put the work in or even are willing to look at what the knowledge should be.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, so there's always a certain amount of willful ignorance that comes into play. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. No, that's true.
No.
That's true.
For sure.
Alison, who just had a fantastic premiere on Indie Comics Network yesterday, says, I rough everything out on note cards, then I choose what I want and rough it out on 11 by 17 copy paper. I then lightboard it into my finished paper.
Well, that is a good one.
Yeah. Sometimes I rough it out in Clip Studio first, and then lightboard it to my finished paper. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to the point now where I'm completely penciling in Clip Studio because I cannot be asked to get on my Lightbox anymore. And
no, exactly that.
Yeah, and so I do the whole thing in Clip Studio, and then I print it out to in blue line onto paper onto my board. And I ink traditionally that way. So I feel like I'm pretty much picking up the best of both worlds. I've got all the fluidity that I get from my pencils and the ability to use layers and all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, I'm having a piece of artwork to sell when I'm finished. So
That's what I said. You made the statement about using, learning how to paint. Or, I think it was Rodney said that, right? But that's what I hate brushes. I do. I've never been able to get a hand on it, but I'm going to have to do that eventually.
Yeah. Well, I was scared stiff of inking for the longest time to the point that when I first started in comics in 2010 now it was. I was using a Wacom then, and that was my preferred choice. And I, that's what I did. I was all digital, and it was only 3 years ago that I picked up. It does help that I don't like the brush, the dipping. I just don't trust it. I know that there's people out there that are so skilled they don't even think about it. But I found that brush pens these days are so good.
Oh yes.
I've got several widths of brush pen. This is the one I use most. This one. I'll just put it in the light there so you can see it. So, and I can refill it, so I don't have to worry about dipping it. And it's I've got several brush pens. I also use the Tombow ones.
Tombos.
They're great. Tombos are great
those.
because they're fine line without having the rigidity of a fine line pen. They are a brush.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get widths in your lines, even at very small areas. You get widths in the lines and variation, and it's just like a brush. It's fantastic, except you don't have to worry about it going blob. So I've found that with the new with the more recent technology in brush pens, I've found my niche. I've found where I am. I've found traditional inking. Okay, you could say it's not completely traditional because I'm not using a sable brush, okay, and dipping it. But it's just that's just a part of the process. It's just in the same way as my penciling, I'm now penciling in Clip Studio, and I pencil exactly the same way as I used to pencil on the Lightbox. It's just taking me less time, and it's easier. I don't have to go and do photocopies and do prints and then Lightbox it and do all kinds of stuff. I can do the whole thing on layers and mess about with it. It's all pencil, okay. Then it gets pumped out, and instead of me dipping a pen, or dipping a brush, I've just got the reservoir in my pen. So it's using the technologies. Without doubt, Buscema, Simmer, Adams, Garcia, all Alcala, all these people, they would have used the technologies that were at hand if they could have. They wouldn't have said, "Oh no, I'm only going to use a brush." No, they'd have done whatever it took to get the job done and to make it look great. And so that's what you have to do. So the same, I said earlier about, don't go straight to your tools. Think about it. It's having that concept that you use all the tools at your disposal, okay, but use them in the appropriate way. Don't get lost in them.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I mean, I remember hearing a story about James Labar who did The Crow, and he actually used some black duct tape to get a lot of or like black tape to get a lot of the
this doesn't surprise me.
No, you do what you have to do to make it look the way you want it to. So let's see. Yeah.
This is 8.5 by 11. This is a full size sheet, and this is what a page would look like. And I'll pencil it out like this, then I'll blow it up. I'll scan it so that I can blow it up and actually clean it up on paper.
Okay,
that's awesome. I love that.
So and playing around with it, but everybody's got their own process. But I find that a pencil gives me a grittiness I can't get in a digital.
That is, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think go ahead. You had something to say?
Yeah. No. There was just agreement.
Well, no, and I think it was saying like Russ had made the statement about using a ruler and stuff like that. And I remember seeing, sometimes there's some lines don't necessarily need a ruler. Right. They don't necessarily need to be like that.
No, you're right. They don't. No.
I saw
it. But it's also the way you use. It's all about the use of the tools, and style often comes down to the way that you like to use the tools.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
it's just the way that you approach your work. So John there he likes the graphite feel of the pencil.
Yeah.
I like the brush feel, so I'm not bothered for the graphite feel of the pencil. I feel I get everything I do digitally. Okay, so we're kind of swapped around. The two of us are like opposites in the way that we work, which is great because you can see that it comes out in different people in different ways and the way that they use the tools. So my pages are like this.
Yeah.
Hold on. Yeah. So I print them out. You might be able to see a little bit of the blue line underneath, but that's all brush work on the black. Yeah. So I start off like you see up here. On my screen, I'll be doing it in Clip Studio, pump it out, and that's the way it ends up.
Yeah.
So I think different tools.
I kind of like the especially for comic book work. I like the fact that there's still there's a feeling of a texture in pencil that is too smooth. I mean, why go through all of the effort of trying to make your brush work like that when you can do it, by just by regular, doing it on paper and scanning it and putting the high contrast and you had to have a feeling of the texture of the paper itself.
That's
exactly.
That's why.
I something I noticed as well. I mean, we were talking about this. it's because people like Kevin O'Neill from 2000 AD, but we were also looking at some of the stuff Wally Wood was doing even further back, using the zipper tone.
Mm-hmm.
And how zipper tone was used back in the day, and how it was used to such great effect, because you've got a zipper tone tool in Clip Studio, but I tend to see that when people use it, they overuse it.
Oh yes,
because it's so easy to use, and I can understand why you would do that. It is so easy to use. Whereas when you were using zipper tone, that was tough. There was an art to that. There was a skill to it. Not that there isn't art and skill to the Clip Studio. What I'm saying is there was a specific art and skill to using that, and it was expensive stuff as well. So you were careful. You were selective about where you put it, and it meant that the art had a certain feel and a certain look to it.
It's a money shot. We would call it an animation. It's a money shot. You put your money into a certain thing, so there's an impression. And so when you have it's very, very much of when you are oversaturated with everything has got the same kind of high intensity. There is no impression. There is no breathing, and the artwork needs to have breath to it. Everything can't be an explosion. Everything can't be into your face, because then you've desensitized the eye and the taste.
Yes, pacing.
Yeah.
Pacing is everything. Yeah.
And a lot of that comes down to confidence nowadays. Just being confident enough to say I can make this line, and I don't have to use a whole bunch of whiteout.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, we're getting about that time, gentlemen. We actually went over that time, to be honest. So.
Oh boy, yeah, we did.
All right, last in, first out, Mike.
Hey everyone, I'm Mike Jimmy DeBruin of Fairies and Ends, and creator of Live on Cora. You can find me usually here on Sketchy Saturday, as well as Hung in Animation on Thursdays on the Indie Comics Network. And you can find Live on Cora Volume 1 right now on Kickstarter. Be sure to check it out. Be sure to follow, because we are going live in January, and there's going to be a lot of extras in there that you don't want to miss, besides the awesome 5 stories that we already have. So be sure to check it out. And off to the next guy.
All right. Russ looks like he's not in right now. John?
Okay. Well, you can find me here on Sketchy Saturdays. Also, my YouTube channel, John Celestri, and Facebook, John Celestri. So, and there's a lot of free stuff on there on my YouTube channel. So there you go.
Awesome. There you go. Russ.
I'm back.
Hey.
You can find me in the pages of Batman, currently on sale in UK and Europe. I think you can pick it up on newsstand.com if you really want a copy. You can also find Only Death Can Save Us. The second issue is over on Indiegogo at the moment, but the first issue has been republished by New Haven. So if you're new to it, you can go pick that up pretty much anywhere. It's in Walmart, Amazon, Books A Million. You go pick that up.
Right.
So you can also get me on the usual social medias. Instagram would be really good, and if you want to sign up to my email list, that would be grand, so that I can tell you about the new books that will be coming out from New Haven, which will be happening this year. Other than that, like I say, just find me at russleach.com, and all the links are there.
All right, awesome. Rodney.
Hey everybody. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, all that stuff at Rodney Fyke Art. I have a link tree, Rodney Fyke Art. Just go there, and everything is there. You can go to the Hasm YouTube channel, find me there as well. Hasm.com, HAZZUM.com. And I am also here on the Indie Comics Network 3 nights a week, right here on Saturdays, Tuesday nights, and Thursday night for Thursday Night Throwdown.
All right. Awesome. I guess I had to put myself up some. Yeah. Anyway. All right. And of course, I'm C. Michael Lanning. You can find me at my my link tree. I guess see this operating one screen is not efficient. Anyway, I'm C. Michael Lanning. You can find me at Linktree/C. Michael Lanning. That's all my socials and portfolio. Of course, right here on the Indie Comics Network, coming up Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, Dispatches from Outside the Box, where we are starting our Disney December. Whether you hate Disney or love Disney, you have to admit that it has had some impact on you somewhere. And
I'm going to get you, see. I'm going to get you.
So you have
Heidi ho.
Yeah. So one way or another, we're going to start looking at the animated features this Tuesday, and so come join us for that. Cool. You're always welcome to do in the comments. And with that, I think that we're gone.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for